I'm Admiral Mandy Rains, 34 years old, and I worked my way from the Air Force Academy's barracks to a 4-star command seat. For years, I tried to earn the respect of my father, a decorated Navy SEAL officer, and his teammate who saw me as the kid tagging along behind them. But when they mocked my uniform and dismissed my service in front of a room full of officers, I made a choice that changed everything. Have you ever been underestimated by the very people who taught you strength? If so, tell me your story in the comments. You're not alone. Before I get into what happened, let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you've ever had to prove your worth to those who refuse to see it, hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about boundaries, respect, and becoming who they never believed you could be. What happened next might surprise you. I stood in the doorway of my childhood home wearing dress blues, the fabric pressed sharp enough to cut glass. The smell hit me first: coffee, leather, and that particular brand of male confidence that never needs to prove itself because it already has. My father sat in his chair, the one with the worn armrest where his wedding ring had scraped grooves into the wood over 20 years. Marcus Dalton sprawled on the couch across from him, both of them in civilian clothes that somehow still looked like uniforms. "Look at you, playing soldier," Marcus called out, grinning wide. He didn't stand. Neither did my father. I nodded once, setting my cover on the entry table. The motion was automatic, practiced through a decade of walking into rooms where I wasn't quite welcome, but absolutely belonged. "Still doing the Air Force thing?" my father asked, not quite meeting my eyes. He lifted his coffee mug, Navy issue, naturally, and took a slow sip. "Still serving, yes sir." I kept my voice level, the same tone I used in briefings. Marcus laughed, the sound filling the room. "Jack, remember when she said she wanted to enlist? And you told her to at least pick a real branch?" I said the Air Force had comfortable chairs, my father corrected, but he smiled. "Didn't say it wasn't real." I'd heard variations of this conversation for 10 years. At my commissioning ceremony, when I made captain, during the promotion to major that they didn't attend. The jokes evolved, but the theme remained constant. I was playing at something they'd actually done. "How's the weather up there in your office, Captain?" Marcus stood now, stretching. He was still built like the SEAL he'd been, broad shoulders, arms that strained his shirt sleeves. "You coordinating a lot of, what do you call it? Logistics? Strategic operations?" I moved into the room, my shoes silent on the carpet. They'd expected me to react, to defend myself the way I had when I was 23 and freshly commissioned. But I'd learned something in the last decade about power. It doesn't announce itself. "That sounds made up," Marcus said, but his grin faltered slightly when I didn't respond. My father finally looked at me directly. His eyes, the same gray-blue as mine, scanned my uniform with practiced efficiency. He saw the ribbons, the badges, the insignia of rank on my shoulders. 3 silver bars, parallel lines that meant captain in Air Force terms. In his world, a Navy captain wore eagles and commanded ships. The equivalency never quite translated in his mind. "You look good, kiddo," he said, and maybe he meant it. "Professional. Kiddo." I was 32 years old, responsible for operations that he'd never be briefed on, and he called me kiddo. "Thank you, sir." I sat in the chair opposite him, crossing my ankles the way he'd taught me when I was 8. "Posture matters," he'd said. "People judge you in the first 3 seconds. So what brings you by?" He set his mug down, leaning back. "Thought you were stationed in Qatar. Temporary reassignment. Pentagon liaison work." That was true enough, though the details were buried under enough classification that even telling him I was in the building would have been pushing it. "Pentagon." Marcus slapped his knee. "Hear that, Jack? She's made it to the big leagues. Probably got an office with a window and everything. Climate controlled too, I bet," my father added. They both chuckled. I let the moment settle, watching them enjoy their joke. This was familiar ground. Safe. They could maintain their worldview here, where my service was administrative, comfortable, removed from anything they'd consider real military work. "How's retirement treating you both?" I asked. Marcus groaned theatrically. "Boring as hell. Your old man keeps trying to get me to join his fishing trips, but I keep telling him I didn't survive 3 deployments to sit in a boat doing nothing." You survived 3 deployments by sitting in a boat doing nothing, my father countered. That's literally what submarine insertion is. Extraction, Marcus corrected. We inserted by air. Usually. They fell into an easy rhythm, trading stories I'd heard a dozen times. The operation in the Philippines. The training incident in Nevada. The time they'd met some general whose name they always pronounced wrong on purpose. I listened, responding when prompted, aware of every minute passing. At 1300 hours, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, a reminder I'd set for myself, nothing urgent, but both men noticed. Duty calls? My father asked. Just a reminder. I silenced it. That's the thing about the Air Force, Marcus said, leaning forward. They run on reminders. The Navy, we run on instinct and the ocean schedule. The Air Force runs on precision, I said quietly. When we miss a window, people die. Just like every other branch. The room went still for a beat. Marcus's smile faded slightly. Sure, he said. Didn't mean anything by it. But he had. They always did. Every comment, every joke, every casual dismissal was a small assertion of their superiority. They'd been there, done the real thing. I was just playing along in a different uniform. My father cleared his throat. You hungry? I was going to order lunch. I can't stay long. I checked my watch, a habit that annoyed him. He believed in feeling time, not measuring it. Important Air Force business? Marcus asked, and this time the edge in his voice was clearer. Just business. I stood, retrieving my cover. The weight of it in my hands was familiar, grounding. You just got here, my father said, but he didn't stand to stop me. I know. I'm sorry. It's good to see you both. I meant it, despite everything. He was still my father. Marcus was still the man who'd taught me to throw a proper punch when I was 12. At the door, I paused. There's a Navy charity gala next month. Joint service event. I'll be there if you're attending. Might be, my father said. If Marcus stops being cheap about the tickets. They're $300, Marcus protested. For charity. For rubber chicken and speeches. I left them arguing, closing the door on their voices. Outside, the Virginia sun was bright and warm. I sat in my car for a moment before starting the engine, letting the quiet settle around me. They'd see me at the gala. They'd make their jokes, probably louder with an audience and alcohol. And I'd stand there in my dress uniform, 3 bars on my shoulders, and take it. Because in 6 weeks, those bars would be replaced. The promotion board results were sealed, classified, not yet announced. But I'd gotten the call yesterday from General Keane himself. Colonel. Oh, 6. I'd be the youngest in my year group. My father wouldn't know until the public announcement. Neither would Marcus. They'd show up at that gala expecting Captain Rains, the one who played soldier in comfortable chairs. They'd make their jokes, perform for their audience. And then they'd see the Eagles. I started the car and pulled away from the house, watching it shrink in my rearview mirror. The promotion wouldn't fix anything between us. But it would change the terms of engagement, whether they were ready for it or not. The Navy Charity Gala was exactly what Marcus had predicted: rubber chicken, speeches, and expensive tickets for a good cause. I arrived alone, having turned down 3 offers to attend with fellow officers. Some events, you walk into by yourself. The ballroom was decorated in tasteful navy and gold, anchors and eagles rendered in elegant centerpieces that probably cost more than my monthly housing allowance. I checked my coat, smoothed my uniform, and stepped into the crowd. Captain Rains. A voice called from my left. Commander Sarah Mitchell from the Naval Academy Development Office, someone I'd worked with on a joint recruitment initiative. She waved me over to her table. Commander. I shook her hand, noting the other officers gathered around. All Navy, all senior enough to have opinions about inter-service cooperation, which usually meant opinions about the Air Force. We were just discussing the new joint base proposal, she said. You're at the Pentagon now, right? Any insight? Nothing I can share at a social event, I said, smiling to soften the deflection. That's what everyone at the Pentagon says, one of the captains, Navy captain, the 06 equivalent, said. Which usually means they don't actually know anything. The table chuckled. I kept smiling. Or it means the information's classified and I enjoy not being court-martialed, I replied. Fair enough. He raised his glass. Though I've always wondered what the Air Force classifies. Coffee preferences? Office temperature settings. More laughter. I was used to it. Inter-service rivalry was older than most of the people in this room, and it would outlive us all. Usually, it was harmless. Usually. Mandy. I turned to see my father approaching, Marcus beside him. They were both in dress uniforms, my father in his old Navy service dress blues, ribbons precisely placed even though he hadn't worn them in years. Marcus wore the same, though his fit suggested he'd needed some alterations since retirement. Dad. Marcus. I excused myself from Commander Mitchell's table. Look at this, my father said, gesturing to the ballroom. They really went all out. $300 says they did, Marcus muttered, but he was scanning the room with professional interest. Old habits. You both look good, I said. We clean up. My father's eyes drifted to my ribbons, the same cursory glance he'd given them at the house. You're at table 14. We're at 22. Different tables? It's assigned seating. By rank or donation tier, probably both. He shrugged. We'll catch up later. They moved past me toward the bar, already engaged in conversation with another retiree they'd spotted. I found table 14, all field-grade officers, a mix of services. An Army major, 2 Marine captains, and a Navy lieutenant commander who introduced herself as Jessica. Air Force? She asked, noting my uniform. Guilty. Thank God. These two have been arguing about the Marine Corps birthday for the last 10 minutes. She tilted her head toward the Marines. I need backup. The dinner proceeded as these events always did. Speeches about service and sacrifice, a video presentation about the charity's work, and the inevitable appeal for additional donations. I contributed what I could, aware that several tables away, my father and Marcus were likely making similar calculations. During the third speech, I excused myself to use the restroom. The hallway was quieter, though I could still hear the speaker's voice echoing through the open ballroom doors. I was washing my hands when 2 women entered, both in civilian dress. Did you see Commander Rains? One asked. He looks exactly the same. Retirement agrees with him, the other replied. And his friend, the SEAL? Still looks like he could tear a phone book in half. They're at our table. Both their daughters are in service too, apparently. Navy and Air Force. Really? Following in Dad's footsteps. Well, one of them. The Air Force one. She paused, and I watched her reflection in the mirror as she applied lipstick. Apparently she's just a captain. Kind of surprising for Jack Rains's daughter, you know? You'd think she'd have made commander by now if she was any good. They left before I could respond, not that I would have. They didn't know the ranks weren't equivalent. They didn't know that Air Force captain and Navy commander were the same pay grade. They just knew that in their service, captain was several steps below commander, and they'd made assumptions accordingly. I dried my hands slowly, carefully, and returned to the ballroom. The speeches ended. Dinner was served. The chicken was, as promised, rubbery. Conversation at my table was professional and pleasant. Jessica, the Navy lieutenant commander, asked intelligent questions about Air Force operations structure. The Marines debated tactics. The Army major told a story about a joint exercise that had everyone laughing. At table 22, my father and Marcus were holding court. I could see them from my seat, animated, surrounded by other retirees and their spouses. My father's hands moved as he talked, the gesture I recognized from countless stories. Marcus laughed at something, the sound carrying across the room. Your father? Jessica asked, following my gaze. Yes. Must be interesting, having a Navy father. It's something, I agreed. After dinner, during the social hour, they found me near the silent auction tables. There you are, my father said. We've been looking for you. Busy table, I said. Yeah, lots of old-timers. Marcus grinned. Your dad's been introducing me as his SEAL buddy. Like anyone cares. Everyone cares, my father corrected. Half the room wants to buy us drinks. Then why are you here? I asked. Because family's more interesting than free drinks, my father said, and I wanted to believe him. Marcus leaned in conspiratorially. So, real talk. Air Force captain. That's what's the kill count requirement for that rank? Or do you just need to coordinate enough supply drops? Several people nearby turned to listen. Not obviously, but enough that I knew we had an audience. There's no kill count requirement for any rank in any service, I said evenly. Sure, officially. Marcus grinned wider. But come on. Your dad here earned his commander bars. Real missions, real stakes. That's different from, what do you do again? Communications. Strategic operations. Right. That? He raised his glass. Important stuff, I'm sure. My father didn't correct him. Didn't add context or defend me. Just stood there, a half smile on his face, letting his friend score points. Very important, I said. Though I understand it might be hard to conceptualize from the outside. The outside. Marcus's smile hardened slightly. Kid, I was operational for 15 years. I know what important looks like. I'm sure you do. Marcus, my father said quietly, finally. Maybe no, it's fine, Marcus interrupted. I'm just saying. Air Force Captain. Your daughter's, what, 32? 33? And she's a captain. That's a decent career, sure. But it does come with a coffee mug, right? That's not just a stereotype. Someone in the nearby group actually laughed. A retired Navy captain, the 06 kind, who probably didn't even realize he was reinforcing the joke. I looked at my father. Really looked at him. Waited for him to say something, to bridge the gap between his world and mine, to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, his friend was being an ass. He looked away. Excuse me, I said. I need to get some air. I walked away before either of them could respond, through the ballroom, past the bar, out the side door into the hotel's garden area. The night was cool, November in Virginia settling toward winter. I stood under the decorative lights strung between posts, breathing slowly and deliberately. The promotion was classified for 4 more weeks. The announcement would go out to all services simultaneously, the way it always did. Colonel Rains, Air Force, assignment to Joint Operations Command. Eagles on my shoulders, the kind my father recognized as real rank. But standing in that garden, I realized something. The promotion wouldn't fix this. It would just change the nature of their dismissal. Instead of jokes about comfortable chairs and coffee mugs, I'd hear about how I'd been fast-tracked, or how Air Force promotions were easier, or how Joint Command wasn't real command. The problem wasn't the rank. It was the respect. And you couldn't promote your way into that. I stayed in the garden for 20 minutes until the cold drove me back inside. I didn't return to the ballroom. I collected my coat, declined 3 offers for nightcaps from fellow officers, and drove home alone. My phone buzzed once on the drive. My father, where'd you go? I didn't answer until I was parked outside my apartment. Home. Early morning tomorrow. Okay, kiddo. See you next time. Kiddo. Always kiddo. I sat in my car, engine off, watching the dashboard lights fade to black. Next time, I'd be wearing Eagles. Next time, protocols would be different. Next time, Marcus would have to salute. But next time, my father still wouldn't see me. Not really. Not the way I needed him to. I went inside, hung up my uniform, and tried not to think about the look on his face when he'd let Marcus's words hang in the air unanswered. Tried not to calculate how many missions, how many successful operations, how many lives I'd helped save would it take to earn what he'd given freely to every man in that room. The answer, I suspected, was that no number would ever be enough. I grew up on bases. Not one base, but the collective concept of them, temporary homes connected by chain-link fences, commissaries that all smelled the same, and the constant background hum of military life. My father's career moved us every 3 years like clockwork. Norfolk, San Diego, back to Norfolk, then Hawaii for a stint that everyone pretended to complain about but secretly loved. My mother left when I was 7. I don't remember much about her beyond a vague impression of someone who smiled less each time we moved. After she was gone, it was just me and my father and the Navy that raised us both. Commander Jack Rains, he made 05 when I was 9, was everything a naval officer should be. Calm under pressure, decisive in crisis, and absolutely confident in his authority. He commanded a destroyer for 3 years, and I spent that time learning what leadership looked like from the outside. I watched sailors snap to attention when he walked past. I heard the respect in their voices when they called him sir. I understood, even as a child, that my father was someone important. He didn't talk much about his work, but he taught me adjacent lessons. Physical fitness wasn't optional. We ran together every morning he was stateside, 5 miles before breakfast. Discipline mattered, beds made with hospital corners, shoes aligned in the closet, homework completed before dinner. And bearing, always bearing. People judge you in 3 seconds, he told me constantly. Stand straight, look them in the eye, and never apologize for taking up space. I absorbed it all like gospel. Marcus entered our lives when I was 10. He was the SEAL that everyone wanted at their table, the operator with stories that made other men lean in closer. He and my father had worked together on classified operations that they'd hint about but never fully explain. The friendship was immediate and complete, the kind of bond that forms between people who've trusted each other with their lives. Marcus taught me things my father wouldn't. How to throw a punch properly, hip rotation, not just arm strength. How to shoot a rifle, breathing, trigger squeeze, follow through. How to read people looking for threats. Your dad teaches you discipline, Marcus said once, adjusting my stance at the range. I'll teach you violence. Both matter. I was 12, and I thought it was the coolest thing anyone had ever said. By the time I was 15, I knew I wanted to serve. Not because of patriotism, though that mattered. Not because of tradition, though that mattered too. But because I wanted to be like my father. I wanted people to respect me the way they respected him. I wanted to walk into rooms and change the temperature just by being there. Navy, my father asked when I first mentioned it. We were in Hawaii, sitting on our back patio, watching the sunset turn the ocean gold and pink. Yes, sir. He nodded slowly. It's a hard life. I know. Especially for women. I know that too. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something I couldn't quite name. Pride, maybe. Or concern. Or the complicated mixture of both that parents feel when their children choose difficult paths. The academy? He asked. I'm going to try. You'll need strong grades. Leadership positions. Athletics. I know. And a nomination. I can't get you that. Conflict of interest. I wouldn't want you to. That made him smile, small but genuine. Good answer. I didn't get into the Naval Academy. My grades were high enough, my athletic record solid, and I'd been student body president my senior year. But the nominations went to other candidates, and my application was politely declined. I cried for exactly 1 evening, then researched alternatives. Air Force Academy accepted me, I told my father 2 months later. He was stationed in Norfolk again, promoted to captain, the real captain, the O-6 kind that commanded ships and battle groups. We were having dinner at the base, just the two of us, celebrating his promotion. The Air Force, he repeated. Yes, sir. That's... He paused, choosing words. That's a different service. I'm aware. The Navy's where our family serves. You serve in the Navy, I corrected gently. I'm just starting. He set down his fork, regarding me across the table with the same evaluating stare he probably used on junior officers. Is this because the Naval Academy said no? This is because the Air Force Academy said yes. Mandy, Dad. I kept my voice level, employing the bearing he'd taught me. I want to serve. The Air Force is giving me that opportunity. I'm taking it. He was quiet for a long moment. Around us, other officers and their families carried on with their meals, unaware they were witnessing a small fracture in the Rains family foundation. At least it's not the Army, he finally said, and tried to smile. I smiled back relieved. At least it's not the Army. The Air Force Academy was everything I'd hoped and harder than I'd prepared for. The physical demands were brutal, the academic load overwhelming, and the military training designed to break down and rebuild. I loved every minute of it. I called my father once a week, scheduled calls on Sunday evenings when I had phone privileges. I told him about my classes, my squadron, the training exercises that pushed me past limits I didn't know I had. Sounds like you're doing well, he said each time, and I learned to hear both the pride and the distance in those words. Marcus was more direct. He visited once during my sophomore year, taking me to dinner off base. Your dad's worried about you, he said over burgers that tasted like heaven after weeks of cafeteria food. I know. He thinks the Air Force is soft. I know that too. Is it? I met his eyes. We ran 12 miles yesterday in full gear. One of my classmates broke her leg on the obstacle course last month. I've slept 4 hours a night for 3 weeks because of exams and training schedules. Does that sound soft? He grinned. No, but it sounds like school. It is school. School that happens to include learning how to operate in combat conditions. Operating. He leaned back. That's a word you guys use a lot. The Navy deploys. SEALs execute. The Air Force operates. We also win wars, I said. Usually from 30,000 feet, which is where the term air superiority comes from. He laughed at that, genuine and surprised. Okay, you've got some fire in you. Good. You'll need it. I graduated 5th in my class, commissioned as a second lieutenant, and received my first assignment to Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. Intelligence operations, which meant long hours analyzing data, briefing pilots, and learning the bureaucratic machinery that made missions possible. My father attended my commissioning ceremony. He wore his uniform, stood in the audience, and saluted when I crossed the stage. But at the reception afterward, when other families celebrated with tears and embraces, he shook my hand. Congratulations, Lieutenant. Thank you, sir. Make us proud. I will. He left before the cake was served, citing an early flight back to Norfolk. Marcus stayed longer, taking dozens of photos that I later found posted to his Facebook with captions like, Jack's daughter, all grown up and official. I told myself the distance was normal. That commissioned officers couldn't be emotional. That my father was proud even if he didn't show it the way other fathers did. I told myself a lot of things in those early years. The work at Nellis was demanding and invisible. I helped coordinate strike packages, analyzed enemy air defense systems, and briefed pilots who'd take my intelligence into combat zones. When operations succeeded, the pilots got congratulations. When they failed, intelligence got questions. I made captain at 28, promoted ahead of my peer group based on sustained superior performance. The promotion board results came out on a Wednesday. I called my father that evening. Captain, I told him. The results posted today. That's great, kiddo. Congratulations. Thank you. So what is that equivalent to Navy Lieutenant? Navy Lieutenant is 03, yes sir. Right. A pause. Well, it's a good rank. Solid. You'll probably stay there a while, build up experience. I bit back my response. In the Air Force, captain was a career milestone, the rank where you proved you could handle real responsibility. In the Navy, my father had made captain 06 and commanded thousands. The equivalency was lost in translation. I'm sure I will, I said instead. Marcus says hello. We're going fishing this weekend. Tell him I said hello back. Will do. Stay safe, kiddo. The call lasted 4 minutes. I was assigned to Qatar a year later, running intelligence operations for an entire theater. The work was classified, high stakes, and exactly the kind of challenge I'd joined for. I briefed generals, coordinated with allied forces, and oversaw analysis that directly shaped combat operations. My father didn't ask about any of it. When we talked monthly now, sometimes less, he asked generic questions about the heat, the food, the living conditions. Never the work. Never the missions. He's proud, Marcus told me during one of his rare calls. He just doesn't know how to show it. He showed it fine when I was a kid. That was different. How? Marcus didn't have an answer for that. I came home on leave once during that assignment, spending 2 weeks in Virginia. My father took me to his favorite bar, a dive near the base that served Navy personnel and retirees. We sat at a corner table, drinking beers neither of us really wanted. You look good, he said, studying me. Military life suits you. Thank you. Though you're thinner. They feeding you over there? Plenty. And the work? You like it? I love it. Good. He nodded. That's good. We sat in silence for a while, watching other patrons play pool and argue about basketball. Around us, people laughed and told stories, connected by shared experiences and common language. Dad, I finally said. Do you? Are you proud of me? He looked surprised. Of course I am. Really? Mandy, you're serving your country. You're an officer. You're doing good work. Why would I not be proud? I don't know. You just seem disappointed. Like I chose wrong. I'm not disappointed. But you're not happy either. He was quiet for a long moment, turning his beer bottle in his hands. I'm proud of you. But I'd be lying if I said I understood your career. The Air Force it's not what I know. It's not what I did. So when you tell me about your work, I can't picture it the way I could if you were on a ship or leading sailors. I lead airmen. I know. And I'm sure you do it well. But it's different, Mandy. You have to understand that. I did understand. That was the problem. We finished our beers and went back to his house. I left 2 days later, returning to Qatar and the work that made sense, where my rank meant what it said, and nobody asked me to translate my service into terms they could respect. The distance between us grew wider, more comfortable in its familiarity. We had defined roles now, the decorated Navy captain and his Air Force daughter who'd chosen a different path. It wasn't what I'd wanted, but it was what we'd built. And I told myself it was enough. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 0800 hours local time. I was in my office at the Pentagon, reviewing operational reports, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize, but had memorized anyway. The kind of number that meant something had changed. Captain Rains, I answered. Mandy, it's General Keane. I sat up straighter instinctively. Sir, the promotion board results are finalized. Congratulations, Colonel. It's well-deserved. For 3 seconds, I couldn't speak. I'd known the board was meeting. I'd known my file was strong. But knowing and hearing are different things. Thank you, sir. I'm honored. The public announcement will go out in 6 weeks, standard timeline. Until then, keep it quiet. But I wanted you to hear it from me first. I appreciate that, sir. You've done exceptional work. We're looking at a joint operations assignment next, something that'll challenge you. We'll talk details once the announcement drops. Yes, sir. After he hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen without seeing it. Colonel. 06. The rank my father had held when he commanded his destroyer. The rank that meant real authority, serious responsibility, the kind of leadership that shaped operations and careers. I was 33 years old, the youngest in my year group to pin on eagles. I should have been celebrating. Should have called friends, made plans, let myself feel the full weight of the accomplishment. Instead, I sat in my office and thought about my father's face at that charity gala, the way he'd looked away when Marcus made his jokes. The promotion wouldn't change anything. I knew that. But part of me, the part that was still 12 years old, running beside my father at 0500 hours, trying to keep pace, hoped it might. The 6 weeks passed in a blur of normal work. I briefed senior officers, coordinated with allied forces, and managed 3 concurrent operations across 2 theaters. The promotion stayed classified, a small secret I carried alone. The night before the public announcement, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my apartment staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios. My father would see the message all retired officers received official announcements. He'd read my name with the rank beside it, Colonel Mandy Rains, U.S. Air Force. He'd understand what it meant, what it represented. And then what? Would he call? Would he acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, I'd earned something worth respecting? The announcement dropped at 0900 hours on a Thursday. My phone exploded with messages, friends, colleagues, former instructors, all offering congratulations. I responded to each one professionally, grateful but measured. My father didn't call. Marcus did. Hey, saw the news. Colonel, that's big time. Thank you. Your dad must be thrilled. I haven't talked to him yet. Oh, well, he's probably just processing it. You know, Jack, not big on emotions. Right. But seriously, congratulations. That's a real accomplishment. Even if it is the Air Force. He laughed, the sound familiar and grating at once. Thanks, Marcus. 3 days later, my father sent a text. Saw your promotion. Congratulations. That was it. 9 words. No call, no questions about the assignment, no acknowledgement that I'd reached his rank 10 years younger than he had. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thank you. Work continued. The promotion became official, and I spent a week at ceremonies and administrative processing. My new assignment came through, Unit 97, a classified Joint Force Special Operations Directorate. The briefing packet was 600 pages of dense operational doctrine, current missions, and personnel files. I had 2 months to prepare before taking command. The first briefing was scheduled at a secure facility in Virginia, close enough to my father's house that I considered visiting him beforehand. But I didn't. Some conversations can't happen until the context forces them. I arrived at the facility at 0700 hours, wearing my new rank for the first time in an operational setting. The eagles felt heavier than they were, significant in a way my previous ranks hadn't been. The guard at the gate checked my credentials twice before waving me through. The conference room held 20 people when I entered, a mix of services, all 05 and above, all cleared for the briefing. I recognized a few faces from previous assignments. Others were new, but they all wore the same expression, polite curiosity about the Air Force colonel who'd been tapped for Joint Command. Colonel Rains, the Army Brigadier General running the brief, greeted me. "Welcome, sir." "Thank you." I found my seat, third row, aisle, and reviewed my notes while others filed in. At 0759 hours, someone else entered. I didn't look up immediately, focused on the operational timeline in front of me. "Attention on deck." Everyone stood. I looked toward the front of the room, assuming the commanding officer had entered. Instead, I saw Marcus Dalton standing near the door, wearing commander's insignia, 05, Navy, and looking directly at me. Our eyes met. His widened slightly, then narrowed. He hadn't known I'd be here. "Carry on," the Brigadier General said, and everyone sat. Marcus made his way to a seat 2 rows ahead of me. I watched him process the situation, the brief confusion giving way to calculation. He'd seen my uniform, registered the rank, but maybe assumed I was here in some administrative capacity. Liaison work. Coordination. Something that fit his understanding of Air Force operations. The briefing began with an intelligence overview, then operational update, then logistical concerns. I took notes, asked 2 questions, both about force protection protocols, and tracked Marcus's body language. He shifted in his seat when I spoke, the movement subtle but telling. At 0930 hours, they broke for coffee. Marcus waited until I was alone by the beverage station before approaching. "Small world," he said. "Commander." I nodded formally. "Colonel." He said it like he was trying the word out. "That's quite a promotion." "It happens." "In 6 years?" "From captain to colonel." He poured himself coffee slowly. "Must be nice having friends in high places." I added cream to my own cup, measuring it precisely. "Must be nice assuming hard work doesn't matter." "I didn't mean yes, you did." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the moment he registered the change. I wasn't the kid he'd taught to shoot. I wasn't Jack's daughter playing soldier. I was a full colonel, here for the same briefing he was, at an equivalent level of authority. "So what's your role here?" he asked. "Coordination." "You'll find out." Cryptic. Classified. The briefing reconvened before he could push further. We returned to our seats, and the Brigadier General advanced to the next slide. "That brings us to command structure. Unit 97 operates under Joint Force Authority with rotating service oversight. The current cycle brings Air Force Command. Your new commanding officer is scheduled to assume duties in 60 days. He clicked to the next slide. My name appeared with photo, rank, and assignment details. Colonel Mandy Rains will take operational command of Unit 97, effective immediately following transition briefings. She brings extensive intelligence and strategic operations experience, plus Pentagon-level joint coordination background. We expect a smooth transition." The room was silent for a beat. Then Commander Johnson, a Navy officer I'd worked with in Qatar, started clapping. Others joined in, the applause polite but genuine. I didn't look at Marcus. Didn't need to. I could feel his shock from 2 rows away. The briefing continued for another 90 minutes. Command structure, reporting chains, operational security protocols. My role shifted from attendee to subject, questions directed at me, clarifications requested, protocols confirmed. I answered each one professionally, aware that this room was watching me establish authority. When the Brigadier General dismissed us at 1100 hours, several officers approached to introduce themselves properly. Commander Johnson clasped my shoulder. "About time they gave Unit 97 someone competent," she said. "Last CO nearly got us all killed through indecision. I'll try to keep us alive. That's all we ask." Marcus waited until the crowd thinned before approaching. His expression was carefully neutral, professional in a way that looked practiced. "Colonel Rains." "A word." "Commander." We stepped into the hallway, away from the others. Marcus glanced both ways, checking for listeners, then leaned in slightly. "Does Jack know that I'm taking command of Unit 97? It's not classified from him specifically, so I assume he could find out if he asked the right people. You know what I mean. Does he know you're a colonel? I assume he read the announcement when it went out to all services." "And he didn't." Marcus stopped himself. "Never mind." "What?" "Nothing. It's just, Colonel. That's real rank, Mandy. That's command authority. That's what I've been working toward." I finished. "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I recognized from 100 family gatherings. "You could have mentioned this. It was classified until announcement. After that, then. You called me. You congratulated me. We had that conversation. I thought it was just a promotion. Like a normal progression." I kept my voice level professional. "It is a normal progression for competent officers who work hard and excel at their jobs." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Commander?" The rank hit him visibly. We were the same pay grade now. 6 equivalents. He couldn't dismiss me as a junior officer anymore. Couldn't joke about training wheels or coffee mugs or playing soldier. I meant, I'm surprised, that's all. Surprised I earned it? Or surprised the Air Force gives real commands to real colonels? "Jesus, Mandy, Colonel Rains," I corrected quietly. "In this building, in this context, that's how you address me." His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he might argue. Then he straightened, snapped a proper salute, and said through clenched teeth, "Understood, Colonel." I returned the salute. "Thank you, Commander. I look forward to working with you." I walked away before he could respond, back into the conference room to collect my briefing materials. My hands were steady as I packed up, though my pulse hammered in my ears. Commander Johnson appeared beside me. That looked tense. "Old family friend," I said. "Adjusting to new dynamics." One of those." She grinned. "I had an ex-boyfriend find out I outranked him. He requested a transfer within a week." "Did you approve it?" "Absolutely. Life's too short to work with people who can't handle competent women." I finished packing and left the building. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my father, all in the last 30 minutes. Marcus had called him immediately then. Told him what happened. Forced the conversation my father had been avoiding. I waited until I was in my car, door closed, engine running, before calling back. "Mandy." He answered on the first ring. "Dad. Marcus just called me." I assumed he would. "He said you're taking command of some joint operations unit. He said you're a full colonel." He said. My father stopped, and I heard him breathe carefully. "He said he had to salute you. He's a commander." "I'm a colonel. Protocol requires it." "Mandy, why didn't you tell me?" "I did tell you. I sent you the promotion announcement." "You sent me a text." 9 words. "You sent me 9 words back," I pointed out. "I matched your energy." Silence on the line. Long enough that I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "You're right," he finally said. "That's fair. I should have called. Should have said more." "Yes." I didn't know what to say. Congratulations would have been a start. I was processing it. "It's a big deal, Mandy. You're the same rank I was. At 33. That's exceptional. It's what happens when you work hard and excel consistently." "I know that." "Do you?" I kept my voice level, but the words came faster now. "Because for 10 years, you've treated my career like a hobby. Like I'm playing at something you actually did. And now I'm commanding a joint operations unit, and Marcus had to tell you because you didn't care enough to ask. That's not fair. Isn't it?" Another silence. I let it stretch. Watching office workers cross the parking lot on their lunch breaks, normal people with normal jobs and normal family relationships. I'm proud of you, my father said quietly. I know I don't say it. I know I haven't handled this well. But I am proud. Okay, Mandy, I need to go, Dad. I have another briefing at 1300 hours. Can we talk about this? Really talk. Maybe, I said. When you figure out what you actually want to say. I ended the call before he could respond. Unprofessional, maybe, but necessary. The eagles on my shoulders caught the sunlight as I adjusted my rearview mirror. Heavy enough to matter. Finally. Unit 97 existed in the margins between services, pulling personnel from every branch for operations too sensitive or too complex for single-service command. The headquarters occupied a nondescript building on a military installation whose name didn't appear on public maps. My first day, I arrived at 0600 hours to find my new office already occupied by the outgoing commander. Colonel Harrison, Army, Career Special Operations, stood from behind the desk when I entered. He was maybe 50, with the kind of weathered face that spoke of too many deployments and not enough sleep. Colonel Rains. Welcome to the circus. Sir. We shook hands. I've got 3 days before I transfer to JSSC headquarters, so let's make them count. Coffee? Please. We spent those 3 days in intensive transition briefings. Harrison walked me through every ongoing operation, every personnel file, every protocol that kept Unit 97 functional. His delivery was rapid-fire but thorough, assuming I could keep pace. I took notes in 3 different notebooks, operational, personnel, and administrative, and asked questions that made him nod approvingly. You've done your homework, he said on the second day. 600-page briefing packet. I read all of it. Most people skim. Most people aren't taking command of your unit, sir. He smiled at that. Fair point. You're going to do fine here, Rains. The team's solid, best operators and analysts I've worked with, but they're skeptical of new leadership. Prove yourself fast. How? Don't try to change everything day one. Listen more than you talk. And for God's sake, don't play favorites across service lines. They're watching for that. On the 3rd day, he introduced me to the command staff. 12 senior officers and NCOs, representing every branch, all with combat experience and specialized skills that made them invaluable. They gathered in the briefing room at 0800 hours, filling the space with the particular energy of professionals sizing up new leadership. This is Colonel Rains, Harrison announced. She's taking command effective tomorrow. I expect you to extend her the same loyalty and expertise you've given me. Anyone have a problem with that? Silence. Evaluating stares, but no objections. Outstanding. Colonel, they're all yours. Harrison left, and I faced my new team alone. I'm not going to waste time with speeches, I said. Colonel Harrison briefed me thoroughly. I know what you do, how you do it, and why it matters. My job is to support your operations, coordinate with Joint Command, and keep bureaucracy from interfering with results. Questions? A Navy SEAL, Master Chief Adams, according to his file, raised his hand. What's your operational background, ma'am? Intelligence and strategic operations. 7 years coordinating airstrikes and special operations in multiple theaters. I've briefed everyone from squadron commanders to 4-stars, and I've seen how good intelligence saves lives and bad intelligence costs them. You ever been downrange? This from an Army Ranger, 1st Sergeant Cole. I've deployed to Qatar and Afghanistan in intelligence roles. I haven't done direct action, if that's what you're asking. But I've been close enough to smell the smoke. That got a few nods. Honest answer, no pretense. Air Force doesn't typically run joint units, observed a Marine Corps colonel, Dalton, no relation to Marcus, thankfully. Why you? You'd have to ask General Keane. But I assume it's because my record demonstrates ability to coordinate across services without prejudice, and because intelligence backgrounds are useful for command that relies on information superiority. That's a political answer, Dalton said. You asked a political question. A few people smiled at that. Dalton leaned back, apparently satisfied. We spent the rest of the day reviewing current operations. Unit 97 ran 6 simultaneous missions across 4 continents, 2 direct action raids, 3 intelligence collection operations, and 1 advisory mission training allied forces. Each briefing revealed the complexity of joint operations, Navy providing insertion, Army leading the ground element, Air Force coordinating air support, Marine Corps handling exfiltration. Every piece had to synchronize perfectly or people died. By 1800 hours, my head pounded from the volume of information. But I'd learned something important. This team knew their job. They didn't need micromanagement. They needed someone to run interference with higher command and trust them to execute. That I could do. The first crisis hit on day 4. An intelligence collection operation in North Africa encountered unexpected resistance. The team leader, a Navy commander named Patterson, requested immediate air support for extraction. The call came through at 2200 hours. I was still in my office, reviewing personnel files, when my secure phone rang. Colonel Rains. Ma'am, Patterson. We're compromised. Need immediate air support for extract. Current location. He rattled off coordinates. I pulled up the operational map on my screen. How many hostiles? Unknown. At least 30, small arms, and possible RPGs. We're in a civilian area. Minimal collateral damage window. Casualties. None yet. But we're pinned. I ran through options. The nearest air support was 40 minutes out, a lifetime in combat. But I had assets closer. A Marine Corps helicopter unit conducting training exercises 200 miles north. Stand by. I switched to another line, got the Marine Operations Officer. This is Colonel Rains, Unit 97. I need immediate air support authorization for your training unit. Ma'am, we're not tasked for your operations. You are now. Authorization code. I read off the classified clearance that gave me authority to commandeer assets across services. 10 seconds of silence. Then, yes ma'am. Where do you need us? I gave him coordinates, timeline, and rules of engagement. Clear, precise, no room for misinterpretation. 23 minutes later, 2 Marine helicopters extracted Patterson's team under fire. 0 casualties. Mission successful. I stayed in my office until Patterson's team reached the safe house and reported in. 0200 hours when I finally went home. The next morning, Master Chief Adams stopped by my office. Word's going around about last night, he said. What word? That you pulled strings to get Marine air support in under 30 minutes. That you made decisions without asking permission up the chain. I had authorization to commandeer assets. I used it. Still. He smiled slightly. It's good work, ma'am. Fast thinking. It's the job. Previous CO would have spent an hour coordinating through channels. By then, Patterson would have been dead. I met his eyes. I don't coordinate through channels when lives are at stake. I coordinate through channels when paperwork's at stake. He nodded once, then left. The story spread. Within a week, I had the team's respect, not given freely, but earned through that one decision. They tested me after that, smaller challenges to see if the North Africa call was luck or competence. Each time, I made the same calculation: mission first, politics second, paperwork last. By week 3, Unit 97 ran like machinery. Briefings were efficient. Operations executed flawlessly. My command style, trust but verify, empower but supervise, fit the unit's culture. Then Marcus showed up. He walked into my office without knocking on a Tuesday afternoon, wearing his service khakis and an expression I couldn't quite read. Commander Dalton, I said, not standing. Did we have a meeting scheduled? No. This is informal. Then knock next time. His jaw tightened. Can we talk? Off the record. I considered sending him away. Would have been within my rights. But curiosity won. Closed the door. He did, then sat without being invited. Old habit from a decade of casual friendship, now inappropriate given our ranks and positions. Your father's worried about you, he said. Is that why you're here? To deliver messages? I'm here because Jack doesn't know how to talk to you anymore, and neither do I. Then maybe you both should learn. Mandy, Colonel Rains. In private, we're not in private. We're in my office on a military installation during duty hours. You're a commander in my operational sphere. I'm your superior officer. Act accordingly. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. This is ridiculous. I've known you since you were 12. That doesn't grant you special privileges in a professional setting. I'm not asking for special privileges. I'm asking for basic human conversation. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. He looked older than I remembered, more gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. The years of military service marked everyone eventually. What do you want me to say, Marcus? I want you to acknowledge that maybe we made mistakes. That maybe we didn't take you seriously when we should have. That maybe, he stopped, searching for words. That maybe you have a right to be angry. I'm not angry. Yes, you are. I'm disappointed, I corrected. There's a difference. He turned to face me. Your father loves you. You know that, right? I know he loves who he thinks I am. Or who he wants me to be. I'm less sure he loves who I actually am. That's not fair. Isn't it? I stood now, moving to the window beside him. Outside, training exercises ran on the grounds, young soldiers and sailors running drills, learning the basics that would keep them alive downrange. He spent 10 years treating my career like a phase. Like I'd wake up one day and realize I'd joined the wrong service, made the wrong choice. And when I kept succeeding, kept rising, he couldn't adjust his worldview. So instead, he dismissed it. He didn't dismiss, he called me kiddo while I was running intelligence operations in combat zones. He made jokes about my rank while I was briefing flag officers. And he stood silent at that gala while you humiliated me in front of other officers. My voice stayed level, but the words cut. So yes, Marcus. I'm disappointed. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry. For the gala, for all the jokes, for not seeing what was obvious. You're exceptional at this. You've earned everything you have. Thank you. But your father, he's struggling, Mandy. Colonel. He's struggling to reconcile the little girl he raised with the officer you've become. That's his problem to solve, not mine. Family isn't that simple. Military hierarchy is. I returned to my desk, sitting down. Was there anything else, Commander? He recognized the dismissal. Started to speak, stopped, then finally said, he wants to visit. Your father. He wants to see where you work, understand what you do. This facility is classified. He doesn't have clearance. He could get it. He still has connections. Then he should use them to request a visit through proper channels. I won't pull strings for family. Would you accept the visit if he did? I considered that. My father, here in my domain, seeing what I'd built. Part of me wanted it desperately. Part of me feared it wouldn't matter. If he requests through proper channels and receives authorization, yes. I'd accept it. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay. I'll tell him. Anything else? No, ma'am. Then you're dismissed, Commander. He left without another word. I sat alone in my office, staring at the operational maps on my walls, wondering if my father would actually follow through. And if he did, whether it would change anything at all. My father requested the visit through official channels 3 weeks later. The paperwork came through my administrative officer, Commander Richards, Air Force, efficient and discreet, who brought the request to my office personally. Sir, you have a visitor clearance request from retired Commander Jack Rains. I took the tablet, scanning the form. Everything was proper, appropriate justification, sponsor authorization from a still-serving admiral who'd served with my father, security clearance confirmation. No special treatment requested, no attempt to use our relationship to bypass protocols. Is this something you need to review personally, ma'am? Richards asked carefully. I can process it through standard channels if you prefer. She was giving me an out. I could pretend I hadn't seen it, let bureaucracy handle the decision, maintain distance. I'll review it, I said. Give me 48 hours. Yes, ma'am. I spent those 48 hours considering options. I could approve it immediately, but that felt too eager. I could deny it, but that would be petty. I could sit on it indefinitely, but that would be cowardly. In the end, I approved it with standard visitor restrictions, cleared areas only, no access to classified briefings, escort required at all times. Professional, appropriate, exactly how I'd handle any retired officer's request. The visit was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon, 1400 hours. I spent that morning in back-to-back briefings, deliberately keeping my schedule too full to overthink. At 1300 hours, Richards knocked on my office door. "Ma'am, your visitor will arrive in 45 minutes. I've arranged for Master Chief Adams to serve as escort. He volunteered when he heard it was family." "That's not necessary. I can escort him myself." "With respect, ma'am, it's more appropriate to have a third party present. Maintains boundaries." She was right, and we both knew it. "Fine. Thank you, Richards." He also asked he asked if he could brief your father on some of our operations. Non-classified overview, just to provide context for what you do here. I considered that. Adams was one of my strongest team members, a SEAL with 20 years experience, and the kind of quiet competence my father would respect. Having him explain our operations might accomplish what I couldn't, showing my father that this was real work, real command, real military operations. "Approved," I said. "Clear it with the security office first." "Already done, ma'am." At 13:55 hours, I watched from my office window as my father's car pulled through the gate. He drove himself, no chauffeur, no ceremony, in a slightly beat-up sedan that probably had 200,000 miles on it. The man who never retired his car as long as it still ran. Master Chief Adams met him at the entrance. I watched them shake hands, Adams's posture respectful but not deferential. They talked for a moment, then Adams gestured toward the building. I returned to my desk, reviewing notes for my next briefing, pretending my pulse wasn't elevated. 3 minutes later, Adams knocked and entered, my father behind him. "Colonel Rains, retired Commander Jack Rains, is here for his 1400 hours appointment." I stood. My father stood straighter. For a moment, we just looked at each other across my desk, him in civilian clothes that somehow still suggested a uniform, me in my service dress with eagles prominent on my shoulders. "Dad. Welcome." "Mandy." He glanced at Adams, then back to me. "Colonel. Please sit." I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. Adams took position by the door, present but giving us space. My father sat carefully, taking in the office. It wasn't large or decorated, just functional, with operational maps on the walls, security protocols posted, and the kind of organized efficiency that came from managing complex operations. His eyes lingered on the maps, the classified markings, the secure phone systems. "This is impressive," he said quietly. "It's a working office." "I can see that." He turned his attention back to me. "Thank you for approving the visit. I wasn't sure you would. You followed proper channels. That's what matters." A flicker of something crossed his face, maybe hurt, maybe understanding. "Right. Of course." Master Chief Adams cleared his throat. "Sir, if you'd like, I can provide a brief overview of Unit 97's mission and structure. Nothing classified, just context for what Colonel Rains commands here." My father looked at me for permission. I nodded. "That would be good," he said. Adams launched into a concise briefing. He explained joint operations, the complexity of coordinating multiple services, the types of missions we ran. He was careful not to mention specifics, but he painted a picture of the unit's scope and importance. My father listened with the focus of a career military officer, asking occasional questions that revealed his understanding of operational structure. "So the colonel coordinates all of this?" he asked when Adams finished. "Yes, sir. She approves operations, allocates resources, manages personnel across all services, and coordinates with higher command. She's also responsible for the team's safety and mission success." "How many personnel?" "I can't give exact numbers, sir, but we're comparable in size to a large company or small battalion. Specialized personnel only." My father processed that. "And what's her command style?" Adams glanced at me. I nodded permission to answer honestly. "Direct. She trusts us to do our jobs but verifies everything. She makes fast decisions when required, sometimes under fire, and she takes responsibility for outcomes. The team respects her because she's proven she can command under pressure." "Can you give an example?" "Sir, that would require discussing classified operations." "Right. Of course." My father fell silent, studying me again. "I didn't realize the scope of what you did here." "I tried to tell you," I said quietly. "I know. I didn't listen well." Adams checked his watch. Sir, if you'd like a brief facility tour, I can show you our non-classified areas. Give you a sense of the operation. I'd like that. They left together, leaving me alone in my office. I returned to work, forcing myself to focus on the afternoon's remaining briefings. But part of my mind tracked time, wondering what my father was seeing, what he was thinking. He returned 90 minutes later, Adams escorting him back to my office. Colonel, Commander Raines's visit is concluding. Thank you, Master Chief. Dismissed. Adams left, closing the door behind him. My father stood there, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain in a way I'd never seen. That was enlightening, he said finally. Good. Your Master Chief speaks highly of you. So does everyone I met today. I have a strong team. They're not just being polite, are they? They actually respect you. Yes. He sat down again, heavily this time. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. You don't, let me finish. He held up a hand. I spent 10 years treating your service like it was less than mine. Different service, different mission, different. I don't know, different everything. I told myself I was proud of you, but I didn't show it. And when you kept succeeding, kept rising, I couldn't reconcile it with what I thought I knew about the Air Force. The Air Force is just as legitimate as the Navy, I said quietly. I know that. Intellectually, I've always known that. But in here, he tapped his chest. I had this idea that real military service looked like what I did. Ships, deployments at sea, the culture I grew up in. Anything else was adjacent. Soft, I supplied. That's the word you used. Yes. And I was wrong. What you do here, coordinating multiple services, managing operations I can't even be briefed on, commanding personnel from every branch, that's not soft. That's harder than anything I did. The words hung between us. I wanted to accept them completely, to let them heal years of distance. But trust doesn't rebuild that quickly. Thank you for saying that. I should have said it years ago. He leaned forward. When you made captain, I should have called. Should have asked about your work, should have tried to understand. When you made colonel, I should have done more than send a text. I think I was intimidated. By what? By you. By your success. You're 33, and you've reached the rank it took me until 42 to achieve. You command a joint operations unit. You brief generals. And you did it all without my help, without following my path. He smiled sadly. I didn't know how to relate to that. You could have just asked me about my work. I could have. I should have. I'm asking now. I considered him across my desk. The man who'd taught me to run, to shoot, to maintain bearing under pressure. The father who'd been so present in my childhood and so absent in my adulthood. The retired commander facing his colonel daughter and finally seeing her clearly. It's classified, I said. Most of what I do, I can't discuss with you. I understand. But I can tell you this, I love my job. I'm good at it. And I've earned everything I have through hard work and competence, not through shortcuts or favors. I believe you. Do you? He met my eyes. Yes. And I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. It wasn't everything. It didn't erase 10 years of dismissal and distance. But it was something. A foundation we could maybe build on if we both tried. Marcus spoke to you, I said. He did. Told me I was being an idiot. That I was losing my daughter because I couldn't handle her success. My father smiled slightly. He wasn't wrong. Marcus has his own issues with how he treated me. I know. He knows too. He's been reflective lately. Good. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear the muted sounds of the facility, boots on floors, doors closing, the constant low hum of operations continuing. Can I visit again? My father asked. Not often, I understand the security requirements. But maybe occasionally? If you request through proper channels, yes. Right. Official protocols. He stood, and I stood with him. That's fair. At the door, he paused. For a second, I thought he might try to hug me. Instead, he came to attention and saluted. I returned the salute formally. Travel safe, Dad. You too, kiddo. He caught himself. Sorry. Force of habit. It's fine. After he left, I stood at my window watching his car exit the gate. Master Chief Adams appeared beside me. That seemed to go well, ma'am. It went adequately. That's more than some families manage. He paused. For what it's worth, I told him you're the best CO I've served under. Meant it. Thank you, Master Chief. Just the truth, ma'am. He left, and I returned to work. The afternoon briefings, the evening operational reviews, the constant flow of decisions and authorizations that kept Unit 97 running. This was my life now. This was what I'd built. My father had finally seen it. Finally recognized it. Whether that changed anything long-term remained to be seen. But it was a start. And maybe, for now, a start was enough. The invitation arrived 6 months later, forwarded through official channels with a personal note attached. The ceremony was standard military protocol, promotion and command assumption for newly promoted flag officers. What made it unusual was my name on the list. Rear Admiral, lower half, 7 in Navy terms, Brigadier General equivalent, would have been impressive enough. But the note from General Keane clarified the real significance: Joint Service Promotion to O10, effective upon ceremony completion. Full Admiral equivalent. Assignment: Joint Special Operations Command, Deputy Director. Congratulations. This is well-deserved and long overdue. I read the message 3 times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. O10. For stars. The pinnacle of military service. The rank that maybe 300 people across all services held at any given time. At 34, I'd be one of the youngest flag officers in history to reach it. The ceremony was scheduled for 8 weeks out, giving me time to transition Unit 97 to new command and prepare for my new role. The location: Joint Base Andrews, with senior leadership from all services attending. Formal dress uniforms required. Family invited. I sat with that last line for a long time. Family invited. I called my father that evening after finishing my operational reviews. Mandy, this is a nice surprise. Dad, do you have a few minutes? Of course. Everything okay? Everything's fine. I got some news today. I took a breath. I've been promoted to O10. Full Admiral equivalent in Joint Command Structure. The ceremony is in 8 weeks at Joint Base Andrews. Silence on the line. Long enough that I checked my phone to make sure we were still connected. Dad, I'm here. I'm just processing. For stars. Yes, sir. At 34? Yes, sir. Jesus Christ, Mandy. His voice cracked slightly. I don't even have words. I'd like you to be there. At the ceremony. If you're willing. Are you kidding? Of course I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it for anything. It's formal. You can wear your uniform if you'd like. I will. Absolutely. He paused. Can I tell Marcus? The announcement will go out in 2 weeks. You can tell him then. He'll want to come too. There's limited seating. Immediate family gets priority. Right. Of course. Another pause. Mandy, I'm proud of you. I know I haven't said that enough, but I'm incredibly proud. Thank you. Your mother should have been here to see this. I wasn't expecting that. We rarely talked about her, the woman who'd left when military life became too much, who'd chosen civilian stability over constant movement. I didn't blame her anymore, but I didn't miss her either. Maybe I said. She would have been proud too, even if she didn't understand it. I need to go, Dad. I have an early briefing tomorrow. Okay. Thank you for calling. For inviting me. You're welcome. The 8 weeks passed in controlled chaos. Transitioning command of Unit 97 required extensive briefings, documentation, and coordination with my replacement, an Army colonel with impressive credentials and the leadership skills to handle the unit. Training my successor took 4 weeks of intensive work, walking her through every operation, every personnel quirk, every protocol that kept things running smoothly. You're thorough, Colonel Martinez observed after a particularly detailed briefing on operational security protocols. Lives depend on these details. I know. It's refreshing. Last transition I did, the outgoing CO gave me a 2-page memo and said, figure it out. That's not leadership. That's abandonment. She smiled. I like you, Rains. If you ever need anything in your new role, call me directly. Likewise. I bought a new dress uniform for the ceremony, perfectly tailored with space for the 4 stars I'd receive. The tailor, a retired Navy chief, handled my colonel's eagles with ceremonial care as he set them aside. "The stars will be heavier," he said. "People don't realize that until they wear them." 3 days before the ceremony, my father called to say he was driving up early. Marcus wanted to come too, he told me. I approved his attendance at the public reception. "He's been talking about your promotion nonstop," my father said. "I think he's processing some things." We had dinner the night before, just the two of us at a quiet restaurant off base. He wore a jacket and tie, looking more formal than I'd seen him in years. "You look nervous," he observed, watching me arrange my silverware too precisely. "Maybe a little," I admitted. "I've briefed 4-star generals and made life-and-death decisions under fire, but pinning on stars in front of an audience has me anxious." "That's because the operations were about the mission. This is about you. It's personal." Over dessert, he got reflective. "I've been thinking about all the times I dismissed what you were doing. All the jokes, all the casual disrespect. I realized I was scared, not of you, but of what you represented. You were achieving things I never did in a service I didn't understand. That made me feel obsolete. So I diminished what you were doing to protect my ego." He set down his coffee cup. "That was cowardly, and I'm sorry." He told me he'd been telling everyone, guys he served with, friends from the base, about his daughter pinning on 4 stars at 34. "I should have been saying it all along," he said. We finished dinner in comfortable silence. Outside, the Virginia evening felt like possibility. The ceremony was at 1400 hours. I arrived at 1200 hours for final briefings. General Keane found me at 1300 hours, resplendent in his own 4-star uniform. "Your father's here," he told me. He said he's the luckiest father in America. That his daughter's smarter, tougher, and more accomplished than he ever was. I told him that wasn't luck, that was good parenting and her own hard work. At 1345 hours, I lined up with the other officers being promoted. The ceremony began precisely at 1400 hours. National anthem, invocation, speeches about service and sacrifice. I stood at attention, aware that my father sat somewhere in the audience, watching his daughter prepare to receive the same stars that generals and admirals wore. When they called my name, I stepped forward. "Colonel Amanda Rains, United States Air Force, for promotion to the grade of Admiral, O-10, Joint Special Operations Command." General Keane removed my eagles. My shoulders felt lighter for a moment, between ranks, between identities. Then he pinned on the stars. One by one, 4 points of silver that caught the light and transformed everything. "Congratulations, Admiral Rains." The audience applauded. I saluted General Keane, then turned to face the crowd. My father stood in the 3rd row with tears on his face. He didn't bother hiding. For the first time in 10 years, I saw pure, uncomplicated pride in his expression. At the reception, my father found me within minutes. "Admiral," he said, testing the word. "My God, Mandy. For stars." He embraced me properly, and I felt 10 years of tension dissolve slightly. Not completely, that would take more time, but enough. Marcus appeared next, navigating through the crowd. "Admiral Rains." "Permission to approach, ma'am." He snapped a perfect salute, then grinned. "For stars." "That's insane. And I'm sorry. For all of it. The jokes, the dismissiveness, everything. You earned this 10 times over. I'm also telling everyone I taught you to shoot," he added. "I'm claiming that credit." My father laughed. "You're claiming her shooting. I claim everything else." Lieutenant Sophia Ames, my new aide, found me near the end. "Admiral, the car is ready whenever you'd like to depart." I said goodbye to my father and Marcus, then followed Ames to the waiting car. In the back seat, I pulled out my phone and texted my father, "Thank you for being there today." It meant everything. His response came immediately, "Thank you for inviting me. Watching you receive those stars was the proudest moment of my life. Love you, kiddo." Kiddo. Maybe I'd always be kiddo to him, regardless of rank or responsibility. And maybe, finally, I was okay with that. The car pulled up to my new headquarters. Lieutenant Ames opened my door. "Welcome to JSOC, Admiral Rains." I stepped out, adjusted my uniform, and walked through the doors. The guards snapped to attention. People stopped and saluted. The building hummed with focused energy. This was my command now. My responsibility. My legacy to build. And I was ready. If this hit home, tap like and subscribe. It helps more people find these boundary-setting stories. Drop a comment. Have you ever had family dismiss your career in public? What finally changed the dynamic for you? A milestone, a promotion, or a hard line? If you were in that gala moment, what would you have said? Can respect be rebuilt after years of minimizing, or is distance the healthier choice? What's one thing you wish they'd acknowledged about your work? Tell me where you're tuning in from, and share this with someone who needs the reminder that rank isn't given. It's earned.